Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Digitalization of Utilities. We have an exciting topic to discuss today with OvalEdge, a leading data governance solution provider. Our special guest today is Sharad the CEO of OvalEdge. Together, we will delve into the future of data governance in power generation, exploring emerging technologies, regulatory framework, ESG, ethical consideration, and more that are shaping our industry. So join us as we explore what lies ahead for power generation and data governance and learn from Sharad's insights and experience in this important field. Sharad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ninad. I really love to be on your show. It's an excellent work you are doing in this sector. It's one of my close to heart sector because I have spent about quite a bit, like probably close to 10 years in this sector. So it's very close to my heart.
Yeah, it's an exciting sector, and especially power generation plays a very crucial role in achieving net zero targets.
Definitely. And in my opinion, the data is going to play quite an important role figuring out the transition from fossil fuels to the renewable energy.
Certainly, data sits at the core of digitalization in utilities. How we can utilize data efficiently using data governance, and that's where you and your company expertise in. So let's start with introduction of OvalEdge and the services and products that you offer.
Sure. So OvalEdge is a end-to-end data governance platform. So what do you mean by end-to-end data governance platform? Let's break it down. The first thing what we have is a data catalog, which basically creates the catalog of all the data wherever exists in the enterprise, whether it's a utility company, whether it's a bank or financial or institution, any kind of company. It's basically a catalog of all the data. And then after that, you do various governance activities into it, right? So when we say governance activities, what do you mean by that? So if you see, the governance is around putting together some policy framework and enforcing it, right? So what OvalEdge help you do is not only define those policy framework, but also what is practically enforceable, allow you to write the policies around that and enforce them as well, so that your data is accessible to the entire organization with the right set of security frameworks, as well as when its access is well understood, what really the data is. When we are understanding that this is a parts information, it is really the parts information. It is not a material information. And then it is also high quality. That means there is not any data quality issues are there. So those are the three basic foundational principle OvalEdge kind of works upon it, like giving the high quality access to the trustworthy information. Yeah, so that's the basic OvalEdge is all about. It's a platform. Since its implementation require a little bit learning curve, in the data governance, so we also help companies to provide some strategic services, some implementation services, so that customer can easily adopt the data governance as well as the product, as well as the procedures. So all the things can be done very easily into this area. So that's what the OvalEdge is.
Okay. How will you explain what makes OvalEdge data governance product unique, and how does it stand from other solutions?
So other solutions are mostly the point solutions. Like you can find a data catalog by itself in the market. There are some open source, there are some enterprise ways as well. But then there are some data governance products are there, which is like only data quality focused. There are some only access focused. There are some only procedure focused. So there are too many products to buy. Imagine you are creating a ERP system and you have one product for purchasing, one for invoicing, one for ledger, one for this. It's too many things to integrate together. So OvalEdge is all in box, all in one, kind of all well integrated together for the entire data governance ecosystem. So that is the major difference between OvalEdge and our company. It's like all in one box. And it's not like there are other major companies who have created those products, but they have bought another company and they're trying to put it together and stitch it together. The one technology is Java based, another technology Python based, doesn't really work, but they're trying to get it stitches together. But OvalEdge is primarily built ground up, ensuring that all these things will be part of it. And there is more to come as well. Because the vision wise, we have started that there is a more like a lot of problem need to be solved through the metadata. And that's the main foundational difference between OvalEdge and our competitors.
So that leads to another question. How do you see the role of data governance evolve? And if you can relate it with the power generation industry, and how is OvalEdge adapting to meet these needs of utilities?
Yeah. So one thing is for sure that the data is going to play a very important role in the transformation of utilities, right? Or it already played, for example, highly important role in like the transformation of retail. Just think about it. Retail, which used to be mom and pop shop, have converted to the Walmarts and then moved towards Amazon. And why Walmart is Walmart? Because of data. And why Amazon is Amazon? Because of data. It's a transformation which happened, right? And similar to that, when the utilities companies have to shift from fossil fuel to all the way to the renewable energy, the data is going to play a hugely important role. And there are a lot of use cases is going to come into this, especially around figuring out how to deal with regulations, which is upcoming, right? That's the one part of which the data is going to play an important role. Figuring it out that how to optimize the grids. How do we optimize every part? Like it happened in France that everybody put a lot of solar roofs on their houses, and suddenly a lot of production is happening and there's no demand. So the supply chain management right now, utilities are very safe and sound. There is no supply chain management is not that much they have to do it. They have the nuclear power plant, they have gas turbine, they have also a coal-based. So nuclear power plant takes, let's say, 15 days to start, although on the gas turbine takes like half a day to start. So they can manage this operation much more easily, right? They figured out the way. And without using that much data, they kind of have the best practices. Now, when the smaller and the micro systems will be generating the energies and consuming the energy, this all things need to be done only with the help of data. This optimization can only be handled through the data, the transformation of that. So this is a huge important role for utilities to basically start adopting the data journey, right? So there are various use cases where the data is going to play a very important role in the transformation. And so this comes out of what is the importance role of a data governance in this whole thing. Okay, I understand the data. So data governance is something that it basically sits on top. Now, when the data transformation is happening, the journey is happening, you need to make sure that data is used correctly. It cannot be used by, I would say, unwanted forces. Let's say, imagine the data is available to everybody outside. Suppose you expose of something, then you basically are not only violating the laws, but also your own company's entire security policy goes away, right? So suppose a breach happened, then it's a big problem about the security of it. But even within the company, somebody leaks the data. So within the company also, you need to have the right rail guards to protect the data. As well as when the data is analyzing on daily basis, you need to have a right definitions of the data, the right quality of the data. If it is not there, then it is very difficult to do the analysis of the data. So it is very difficult to build any use cases on the data. So that is why the data governance is going to play a hugely important role. And if data governance is not there to start with, it's like you're building a use case and you will not be able to build it. You will be building a siloed use case one at a time. And then the second use case will have a long problem and the third use case will have the same long problem. So better to kind of create a regulatory framework or the data governance framework first, and then you start building all these use cases around the data. That's how I see it.
That's a good explanation. Can you share a specific example on how data governance has helped power industry or power generation company identify and resolve security issues or security threat or data quality issues before they become a significant problem?
Say there's one of the Canadian utility companies, our customer. So they understand this challenge. And what they're creating is a platform, the platform where the data is accessible to all. So I say the data governance is only half of the picture and the analytics is half of the picture, right? Because the outcome actually comes by doing the analytics or some sort of a use cases, and then the right results comes. So I consider data governance is center. You have to really massage the data in order to get the right outcome, right? So the data is sitting anyway. So the data is sitting in siloed system or let's say in the central data warehouse. But then On top of that, you need governance, who can access what information. And then you need to build a lot of use cases on it. So the companies are building variety of use cases. Like these companies have built probably 4 or 5 different use cases on top of data, and they're able to build these use cases fast enough. So right now, some people are doing ESG reporting, some people are doing different kind of just understanding the purchasing behavior of their buyer. So there are various kind of use cases are there which companies are leveraging and do the analytics in right manner. Reporting is number one use case, frankly speaking, but also a lot of analytics. So the analytics is the use case, but data governance is enabling that analytics. That's how it works.
You touched on the topic of ESG reporting, and ESG is one of the main concerns at this point of time for utilities, scope 1, scope 2 emissions, and how do you report those emissions? And it's very challenging. How data governance can play a significant role in ESG reporting for utilities?
Yeah. So obviously the ESG regulations are coming up now. I think there's some regulations are already in the place, but there's some other draft conditions, right? So we know that everybody have to report their environment safety guidelines, environmental sustainability guidelines to what they are emitting, what they are consuming, right? They're both things they have to report. And let's say that a nuclear power plant is easier because they are producing a lot of energy, but they're not consuming that much, but there is a radiation effect which they have to report. But let's say coal have to report a lot more, right? In the sense that what they are consuming. So obviously the reason is that people do not measure exactly the carbon dioxide, right? Okay, they are not putting kind of a measurement on top of the chimney and saying that, okay, this is how much we are distributing. This doesn't work that way. So this works in the manner they have to understand and extrapolate the data to figure out how much they are emitting. So it may be that how much coal they are buying. Based on that, how much the emission is happening. Because if you buy the coal and then you already have the coal purchasing data, and based on that and how much energy they have produced, based on that, they can tell, okay, this is the energy, they are kind of creating it. So that's a very high level they can figure out. Again, is the how they're going to measure is the basic component of that, is like we're going to measure it. Then the second thing is they also have to understand how many employees actually come to work and what kind of vehicles are they using. So then it's just very difficult to calculate how many people work to office, etc., etc. So again, they have to extrapolate that number in the sense that, okay, how many employees I have it. Based on that, okay, what kind of, like they might do survey and figure out what kind of vehicles they use. And then they can figure out, okay, average is this much. And every employee comes only 6 months to the office or 9 months to the office. And this is the time. So there is a lot of extrapolation need to happen in the reporting. And this extrapolation and all the measurement need to be all documented. Because when you are demonstrating this lower level detail to the regulators and say, okay, this is how much we are emitting. So the regulator, how did you calculate that? So you have to have all the way everything documented properly. Then this is how we are calculating it. And the problem comes in when you are reporting all this information, there's a lot of data is already in your organization. So you don't have to create a new survey. Maybe you already have in your HR system somewhere. So before you start collecting the data, a new kind of data, so something, you want to see what you already have in your company and maybe want to leverage that rather than creating another attempt of collecting the data, because collecting of the data is very expensive, right? If you already have it. So finding out what you already have is where the data catalog helps you, because the catalog have all the information about all the data. So using the catalog, people can find out what they have it. Once they know, okay, let's build, for example, like say the HR system, you already have the vehicle records. So they say, okay, you already have these vehicle records and they already have the HR systems. And let's say another system might have the time in, time out entry. So let's understand this time in, time out. Let's understand this. And let's build a new model to figure out how much every employee is collecting. Again, I'm just giving a very vague example, but this is how you do it. The same thing can happen, like how much coal are we consuming on daily basis? You have a buyer record. You know they are purchasing the coal. So in your SAP system or in your somewhere system, you might have the purchase orders for it. From there, you might figure out, okay, this purchase orders might give me this information around it, and then I will have to calculate that. So everywhere you're calculating, extrapolating, and figuring out those numbers, And then you are reporting it to that. Okay, this is how we are reporting. This is how much energy we are consuming and how much credits we are buying and all those information. And ultimately the report will come. But as a part of the data governance principles, you have to keep everything documented, that how did you calculate it, whether this is the right quality of the data or not. There is no fraud happen in between. Because when you are reporting this to regulators or the investors, all this comes under the guidelines of the data governance framework, where everything which is reported to the outside need to be properly documented. The source information need to be known about it. Every information which you report is trustworthy. That means it's accurate. So because somebody have to sign on it. If this information is not accurate, because then somebody may go to jail. So that's where
you brought a very interesting point on this scope 2 emissions, wherein how do you make sure that a company who is reporting their scope 2 emissions in terms of how much secondary emissions they are making because of the truck rollouts for fixing some problem, or the employees coming to office and how they are emitting. Now, one of the good example that I hear from you is how data governance help in cataloging that data. Would you suggest data lineage also helps in understanding the end-to-end scope? And that's why these major 2-3 reasons are very important for us to document, or it's very important when we are considering ESG reporting from the perspective of data governance, right? I always overlooked on that particular point of data lineage and cataloging and its importance in ESG reporting, and that was a good insight.
Yeah. When we say documentation, documenting does not mean that it needs to be written in a form of exactly the document, right? The documenting means that everything should be demonstrable to the regulators. And like OvalEdge, we have a platform called Data Lineage, where basically we parse the source code of all this analysis and we build the source to target mapping automatically. It becomes very easier for the developers who are writing those programs and the logics and everything. They don't have to document anything. When they put it into production, and automatically OvalEdge will calculate and build the documentation on top of it automatically. So the idea is that how the tool can help in this regulation journey, right? Otherwise, if you document everything and then suddenly you change the source code again because of this one, then you have to fix the document again. So it's a lot of work, and it's an unnecessary effort to maintain that as a cost as well, right? So it's a cost, but the tool can do automatically. Then wow, its tool is doing for me. So you don't have to worry about those parts. So those are the various things OvalEdge, any data analytics platform actually does, is that how much capabilities it have to track the source. That's the one of the major idea of it, and then making sure the quality of the data is good when it is going there. Because what happens that when the data get reported, sometimes if the data does not load, for example, somewhere, then whatever you are reporting may be half truth, right? Because suppose you are calculating the ESG reporting, let's say the emission data from coal as well as your employee records, right? As we were talking two examples, and let's say the employee was not able to load, and then only the 70% of the reporting or 80% of the reporting is going there, some reporting is not going. So that is why the quality of data is very important, that how you're observing each point of the data and then making sure that everything is correct there. So there are a variety of tool sets are available in the market to leverage that to create efficiency in this data governance ecosystem. You have to do those data governance. There is there is a regulatory requirement as well as to build the trust inside the organization. It is important. The only thing is that how tool can help you to speed up this process is needed, right? That's what we are trying to do, is that we are providing tool to kind of do it. Without Google, people would go to the website, but Google have facilitated you can go to the Google, you can go to the website. Now it's hard to imagine. The same thing is happening in the data catalog world. It's like we consider as our OvalEdge is the Google of data, right? You come there and you search where the data is, and then you kind of go and then build the reporting much more faster and quicker, rather than going and asking different people, work through it, and then get to access to the data. I remember that I was working with a consulting firm, and I was paid very highly at that time for a utility company. And for 15 days, I didn't have access to any data to start building those reports when I was a developer. And I say, hey, I don't have access. How do I start working on it? No, we are figuring out. I don't know who have access to it. And took them 15 days for me, and I was high paid consultant, really like absolutely doing nothing but billing because my company I paid like I have to because you have to charge for it. And there was no data available. And now, if you think around it, if the OvalEdge would have been there, people will search it, they will get it, and then they will create the request, and people will have access to it. So that's the kind of efficiency at the multiple level you have to create. The finding the data, then understanding it, then after that, like when I'm analyzing it, then documenting the lineage of it. So there are a variety of use cases where the efficiency need to be created, and that we have created a platform to kind of create the efficiency around everywhere in the data ecosystem for the governance as well as analytics.
Yeah, on a similar note, what would you advise the utilities or organizations that are just beginning exploring data governance and are searching for a solution to help them with getting started? So what advice would you give to them?
So first thing is that, do you have a data governance roadmap, right? How do you want to establish the data governance framework? So for example, you set up any kind of complex system, like suppose you are setting up a customer success group, or for example, you are setting up a data center. You need to have a framework and you have to have a roadmap that how this process will work. There are a lot of people who need to work in this. There is a processes are needed in order to do this. So the data governance industry in general have created something called data governance maturity model, data governance roadmap, and data governance framework. Those are the three kind of things which is pretty much there. Maturity model help you understand where you are. It's kind of a set of questionnaires which help you to understand where are you in the data governance journey. Generally, if you are asking yourself for the first time, you are level 1 or level 1.5, because you must be doing something here and there, maybe level 2, right? Then you have to see, okay, now let's create my journey toward the data governance roadmap. Like, this is how I will do it. We have to build some resources. You have to hire a data governance manager who can take care of all this aspect of things, and maybe put some money towards like purchasing of the tool and etc. So that's the data governance roadmap you plan, and then which framework you're going to choose. So what we have created is a progressive framework. There is a data governance, the DAMA framework, etc., which does almost the same thing. The progressive framework is a little bit newer. It leverages tools quite a bit. The DAMA framework is very old, about 20-year-old. It doesn't know how to use the tools. Now that's why the progressive framework we created is kind of like, because now that the tools are available everywhere, right? So the leverage the tools, which can save you the efficiency, and then they lay out your roadmap and they start executing on it. So that's how generally the company should start and work on it. And in somewhere you have to purchase a tool, because right now doing data governance without a tool is like doing project management without Jira. It's very, very difficult. When these tools are available, then leverage those tools, right? Or doing the invoicing without invoicing or without SAP. It's like why would you do that, right? Kind of thing. So that's the obvious question. And then figure out what your use cases are, what the priorities for you are. And then maybe have an evaluation criteria for purchasing of the tool. You purchase the tool and then you start implementing. And then also, like, people have seen that, no, I want to build my data governance, then I want to purchase the tool. Yes. But then you have to also make sure that you are changing your business practices somewhere, how the tool can support best. Do not, because these are the new practices you are creating new. We have implemented data governance at hundreds of companies. So we understand what works, what doesn't work. That's why we're creating the tools in this manner. So some people are pretty new and they get rigid on their opinion sometimes. So be flexible on it, because these are the new practices. Nobody have done this before. It's not like accounting where everybody does it. There are whole practices exist. This is a new thing which is getting created. So be flexible in this approach. Be open to that approach, so that we can what works, adopt that and implement it. Like, those are the ways to move forward in this industry.
And most of these tools that we have today in market are SaaS-based tool, isn't it? How easy is it for any company or organization to move between the tools or introduce a new tool for that matter?
Yeah, so this is a new industry. So the people don't have any tool which they were existing for last 10 years. Because the 10 years before, there was no tool available in the market, right? So that nobody was existing. So now the thing is happening is that people might have purchased some tool which is like a generation 1 tool, which the people are not able to take advantage of that. They obviously want to change to OvalEdge. There is a lot of customers that want to do that. But the major part in this one is that the customer have to leverage their data and connect their data to the tool like OvalEdge. So like the data is there in Oracles, in SQL servers, in SAPs, and in all these major systems. So what OvalEdge should have the tool which you buy, the OvalEdge product which you buy should have the connectivity to all your solution, to your Esri system, for example, which is a geolocation system. So it should have the connectivity to all your systems. So that is the number one criteria you should pick. That when I'm going to select, does it connect to my Esri? Does it connect to my Maximo? Does it connect to my this one? Right. So all these systems it should connect to. Once you get this information into it, and then after that, what are the different features you need in order to maintain your data literacy program, your data quality program, your data access management program, so data observability. So whatever the programs you want to run as a part of the data governance maturity model, you have to find the tools which can support that, right? So that is the major part, what is in the data governance industry, which you have to perform. So again, not many people have a tool which is existing, and the people who are doing data governance, if they're doing some data governance, they are using probably a spreadsheet somewhere, and they're not able to scale up. Or I have seen that many companies, they do data governance for the some part, for one person do for example, because I'm reporting this data, which is, say, nuclear utilities, they are reporting, for example, the safety data. So they are only making sure the safety data is documented, and they don't care about other data sources. They don't care about the ESG data or other things. Then the ESG data might have created their own spreadsheet. So everybody might have created their own, but they don't have a framework in place. They don't have a common framework. It can work if the data is not strategic for your company. If you think the data is strategic and is going to play an important role in your organization or the transformative journey, this is why it is important to bring a platform and start working on the data governance as a strategic initiative and work towards it rather than as a one-off thing. Since I'm doing the reporting, let me do the data governance only for that particular swim lane. That is not going to work anymore, because there will be hundreds of swim lanes, and then maintaining that is going to be too expensive rather than creating a one centralized data governance ecosystem and then work upon it. There is a various model of it. Like, say, should I create a one centralized, or should I create a federated where other people can do their own? There are various kind of opinions on that, but at least you need an ecosystem. You need to have this strategic understanding of data governance to start with and then move forward.
Certainly. And this is what I have been noticing even in utilities, not just in generation, but also in transmission and distribution. Data governance is a niche thing. And even if it's happening for one specific business application or one specific business unit. And it's very siloed. They are not talking to each other. The example that you gave previously with one of the utilities in Canada, right? You said that it's very difficult to get the basic information out. And if the systems are not tied to each other, not talking to each other, or your catalog is not right, it's very time consuming for getting one specific regulatory requirement out. Now, if you consider new IoT devices joining in for utilities which are reading data, it's tremendous amount of data that gets collected. Just if you talk about metering data, or even if you talk about one specific sensor data that's coming from the windmill, it's huge amount of information that comes in. Now, if you consider these new technologies that are emerging and pouring data, I'm not just saying dropping data, they're pouring data in, as a data governance solution provider, what sort of emerging technologies like AI, blockchain are being introduced in data governance product? And if you consider the next generation data governance product, what sort of new technologies are being utilized, and how will that benefit the utilities or generation utilities or any other stakeholders?
Yeah, so I think, look, these sensors were there before as well. They used to emit the data, but we were not collecting it because the technology was not there. Sensors were analogous, maybe digital, but they may emit the data. But now we realize, let's collect this data, right? Because you want to create efficiency. Let's say that I'm collecting the sensor data from the power plant, And the power plant is a boiler, and the boiler is collecting that the various sensors are there, which is collecting the data, and then the different systems are there. Now, how can I improve a 1% efficiency? I used to do the maintenance management system. In maintenance management system, we used to say, hey, do you do every 3 months? Do you think that you have to do the maintenance every 3 months? Can you do every 4 months as well? So yeah, I think we can do every 4 months as well. It's not that every 5 months or something. So there is always a for the maintenance management, an overall cost of maintenance is probably around $40 million for a power plant, 40-50 million dollar. And you will create 10% efficiency is like $3-4 million right there, 10%. But generally, industry average is around 30% is wastage, 30 to 40% is wastage in the maintenance. The efficiency can be improved. But how do you improve the efficiency? It's not going to happen like suddenly there is a button somewhere you press it and the 30% efficiency. There is a lot of micro improvements you have to do. So now somewhere the micro improvements have to happen is that, okay, let me get the sensor data from this. And let me really gauge that how the quality of this I can understand from it. And let's see how much we are doing the maintenance every 3 months. Okay, then earlier, 3 months back, we were not able to do maintenance every 4 months. We did the 4 months. Is there any drop in any of the criteria we are collecting the data from? If not, let's do every 4 months, right? Why should I change the car every 3 months because my manufacturer said so? No, what is more efficient for me, that makes more sense. So that's why the sensor data may be very helpful for figuring out those kind of use cases. And again, this is one of the use cases. There are plenty of use cases with the industry veteran know that what to leverage at where, right?
Yeah.
So, and people know that, people at the maintenance shop, they actually know that we are doing over maintenance or we are doing under maintenance. They know that. And if they are doing under maintenance, that is also problematic because then the equipment will break and there is a cost to it, right? So this sensor data will be hugely important to figuring out either the optimization of the maintenance, optimization of even the supply side of the energy. So every part is important in that. And that is where the collection of the data and then analysis of the data. Because ultimately, when you analyze the data, then only you will be able to get some sort of information to it. So collection, then analysis, and then the using that analysis to correct the behavior, right? Then only the cycle get completed. So this new ecosystems which is getting created like IoT is the biggest one, and the AI is very important because a lot of the analytics will be created by machine learning models now, right? Yeah. Because it's maybe the SQL is not the right choice. Somewhere people are not able to figure it out. Then maybe the AI model or maybe statistical model, maybe regression analysis, etc., is needed to kind of like find out what is the right probe, right method to collect this and optimize that. Again, everything need to work in conjunction to kind of work for a use case. And the use case is, again, I picked the maintenance, but use case can be maintenance, supply side, supply chain management, any part of that, the overall ecosystem of that. And as many tool sets we have available, the more complications it is, right? Because now you have AI tool is also available on your chest, right? So you can analyze the data. So now the data scientists need to know what is the right way to analyze the data, whether the SQL is the right way or AI or some sort of a regression analysis. They have to pick, and based on the use case, the business person will demand for it. This is how we can tell it. And then data scientists or the engineers need to know these tools to kind of leverage that analysis and come up with the right outcome. That's how I see that is at the lower level playing this game.
Okay. Now, another thing that is always discussed when it comes to data governance is the regulations related to GDPR and CCPA. Now, how does OvalEdge, the data governance product, help generation companies stay compliant and ensure that the security and privacy of their data?
Definitely, that's a very good question. So the compliances are written, like for example, GDPR, CCP are written for privacy data. Privacy data means customers' PII information, right?
Yeah.
So as I say, the data governance is a framework to kind of use the data to rightly protect, etc. Right? So as I'm saying that, like people were doing spreadsheet for managing their one silo data. So the PII data is another set of data. ESG data is another set of data. So there are variety set of data which you need to have a different kind of regulation, want to have a different kind of mechanism for it. So the OvalEdge has been designed ground up to kind of like make sure your GDPR is compliant, your ESG data is compliant, your all the regulations are met, right? Because ultimately, one data can be related to the GDPR, CCPA, as well as maybe for ESG as well. But generally, the privacy data is like the generation company doesn't have that much, but the utilities and the distribution companies have quite a bit. And most of the companies are generation as well as utility, right? Most of the utilities have generation as well as distribution. Because distribution is where we are selling the distribution to the consumer. And the consumer give you all this information about the social security number and everything you have them. You have to make sure that this data is very nicely protected. The billing information, all those things are protected based on the GDPR laws. So the GDPR laws actually, GDPR or California protection, or maybe the other state might be writing that laws as well. We are speaking. These laws ask you to protect the data in a specific manner. And again, generally speaking, the main guidelines for GDPRs are you want to protect the data with the customer's PII information. You need to know where exactly it is, how it is consumed, where it comes from, where it goes, right? And who basically is in charge of this data. And if something lost, you need to report it. And if I ask you to delete it, you need to delete it. So those are the high level regulations. This basically exists around the PII data. This is there for any laws is there, whether it's GDPR or CCPA. It is written in different style, right? CCPA or GDPR. I think in one or two countries like France and somewhere, they also ask you that the data need to be lived in France only. It cannot go out of France if there's a PII data. But I think the Germany or some countries do allow. I may be wrong here. Some company may allow to the data locationality laws are not that much enforced. But like it can exist in US, but it cannot go to Iran, for example. Like so, those kind of laws are there. But most of the laws is around like where it comes from, where it goes. Somebody should be in charge of it, and where exactly all the data is. You need to know. And if I ask you to delete it, you delete it. If I ask you to give me, you have to give me. So those are the various regulations are there. And OvalEdge is kind of like give you the step-by-step information to how to implement it. It's because the data might be, the PII data might be there in hundreds of systems in the organization, because it's coming to billing went to the invoicing went to the different department, then went to data warehouse went to some places. So it can go to various systems in the company. So this is where OvalEdge can help you find the data wherever it is.
And then securely
secure it and keep it secure there.
Now, looking at the future of the power industry, how do you see data governance might evolve, and what role will OvalEdge play in this evolution?
Yeah, I think that utilities are till far have enjoyed a pretty much kind of monopoly in general, or not monopoly, but a duopoly. They were not being to that much competitive forces as retail was. I'm just taking an example, right? And because if you think around it, but as the transformation is happening and the companies like Elon Musk is coming into the place of utility sector, utilities have to figure out that how do I do this? How do I navigate this transformation? Right now, they're still there, but think about it that how Elon Musk is kind of creating a Tesla into energy company. And he's able to get the money from the market as much as he wants. Suddenly, day one, you will realize he's competing with all the utilities company. And utilities company, if they don't realize that, then they are on the verge of how do they convince their shareholders, right? So they have to find out that they're transformational of the utilities. Right now, it's governed, it's regulated, but if people will start doing their other, the government official is not going to work for utility, they are going to work for people. They're saying if the people ask them to charge their Tesla on their roof panel, let them get decentralized. So what is the utilities' role in the decentralized world? They have to find that out. And the data is important. And unless they find the data governance is the key component of that, it is there. This is the realization of that is needed. And again, these podcasts are the effort to kind of tell the executives of this that I think they know about it. But and what we want to provide is a step-by-step guidance that, hey, this is how you do data governance, right? Again, we will not do that how you do the data analytics. How you do AI, that some other company will do, for example, maybe our partners will do. Then how do you do analytics? How do you do AI? But we are there that how do you do data governance? How do you secure the data? How do you make sure the data is compliant and something? And we want to be the prime player in that area, hopefully.
Okay, yeah. My last question to all my guests is always, what does digitalization of utilities mean to you?
Yeah, I think that what I see is that how do they transform the new industry which is going to be created, which is the decentralization of the utilities, which is going to happen. And decentralization can only happen when it's digitized properly, right? Maybe the generators and the consumers exist in a decentralized world, but the information is centralized with the utility company. Maybe the utility company right now holds a lot of generators and something may only hold data and one day, and they are only maintaining and then charging on that. Think about decentralized world because they need to make sure the supply chain and the demand and the grid management part of it. So they are mostly going to be I think not 10 year, but 20 year down the line, they will be the data company. They will not be holding that much, because the things are getting decentralized for sure. And they need to find the path of that. And that's where the journey is going. And that's what the digitization really means to me. I'm thinking a 20-year long term, that's what the vision is. And the path to that, it starts from collecting the data, putting the data governance framework ecosystem, and then working towards that as the digitization is happening.
Yeah. And I agree to your definition of utilities. As we speak, they are going to be a data companies. They are going to sit on data. And I like your definition of what digitalization of utilities means to you. The data governance and data is such a topic that we can keep speaking for hours. I want to take this opportunity for thanking you to taking out time to come on this show and talk about OvalEdge and also what OvalEdge is doing on data governance side and your product and how it is important for utilities to understand data governance.
Thank you, Ninad. I really enjoyed this podcast. And again, as a utilities is very close to my heart. The sector is very close to my heart. I'm by my profession, I'm a nuclear engineer. Then I work a lot in nuclear power plants. So it's kind of like I want to see that this journey, how this happens. And I think I probably will survive 20 more years, and I want to see this transformation happening through it. And then thank you for having this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.